This is the farmhouse where I grew up, where my father grew up, where my grandfather grew up, where my great-grandfather grew up. The main house was built in 1860. We got electricity in 1943 with the Rural Electrification Act. And now what I am doing is I'm removing the majority of the 1960 updates and reverting the era back to somewhere between 1920 and 1950. I'm going to show you each room in the order that I did them years ago. While I am no more of a carpenter or a designer than any member of my family has ever been, I'm doing it to suit me and my tastes. In this episode, we're going to deal with the kitchen door that leads out onto the porch. The door had three problems. One, it was only 32 inches wide, which made it very difficult to get things in and out. Two, the door opened into the kitchen. So if you wanted to walk from the living room straight through to the kitchen table, you had to close the door to the porch, walk by, and then reopen the door because the door swung all the way over to the island and you could not get by. The third problem is the door was never meant to be an outside door. It was a jalousie door. As you can see, that the center is nothing but pieces of glass that lay over each other like a jalousie window, and it provided no insulation whatsoever. So what I did years ago was I put 1 inch of rigid Celotex insulation into the center and then set in a little window. And that worked for quite a while, but when we wanted to redo the kitchen, we wanted to fix that door problem. A search of the internet looking for door styles, we found this one particular style that we liked, and I was going to have a go at reproducing it. We'll see how well I did. The next step was finding a door, and that literally fell into my lap. Where I work, they decided to throw away one of the bathroom doors and replace it with the exact same door, only painted black. So I got a commercial door with stainless steel hardware and an auto closer. Then I had to make the door fit the hole. So as you can see, I've cut away the wall, giving me an extra 4 inches of width so I can go from 32 to 36 inches wide. And then the top of the door opening and the hinge side of the door was framed, and with some help we hung the bathroom door, or as I like to call it, the chete door. And here it is closed with the original stainless steel pull, and you can see that there's a gap at the bottom and a gap on the right side that we'll have to deal with. Here you can see where we whittled away at the junction between the kitchen and the porch, and we're down to the old main beam getting ready for the new oak threshold. And here I am constructing the oak threshold. And here it was test fitted in place. And here's a view of what the threshold looks like from the kitchen side. And here you can see we set in a piece of oak hobby wood that will be directly under the door. And here's what it looked like when we finished it with 4 coats of amber antique shellac. That would have been the finish of the day. And then I cased the door and installed the automatic closer. And then for the prerequisite lock, I installed a Yale external deadbolt. And the reason why it has to be external is the center of the door is basically sawdust and glue with a oak veneer on both sides. So you don't have a solid core to install a normal deadbolt. And here you can see where I had the bolt milled on a Bridgeport miller to create a bevel so that as the bolt is extended, it hits the stop and forces the door closed tighter, because the only thing pulling the door closed is the automatic closer, because there isn't going to be a standard latch assembly like on a normal door. And then I went ahead and put the auto closer into the kitchen from the porch because it was explained to me that it would be better on the inside than outside. Now with the door functioning, it was time to put the niceties on the door. First was getting a Roggins style cast iron handle. It might have been for a barn door or something, but it's big and heavy and it works very well. The next was to cover the door in cardboard to match the original design we found on the internet to see how that was going to come out. And then I measured for the window, taped it off, and used a cordless skill saw to cut the hole to get ready for the piece of 1-inch thick insulated glass. And here is the porch side of the door with the section of wood cut out, and that's what it's going to look like when we install the window. Next, I went to a lumber mill and I had them cut me some 1/2-inch by 4-inch wide rough sawn poplar. I did not want it finished. And this was glued and nailed to the door. As you can see that it pretty much matches the original picture on the internet. Then for insulation, I gave the door a good heavy coat of NASA shuttle paint, which has a rough finish, which was what we were after. We were looking for an old, rough-looking door. Paint color I chose for the door was Benjamin Moore Aura Spanish Red, because that almost exactly matches the milk paint that we put on the cupboard in the kitchen. By this time, the window that we custom ordered had arrived, so I popped out the chunk of wood and stuck that in with silicone seal and then trimmed it on both sides to hold it in place. Here is the example of the inside trim. That's a special trim that I designed and constructed. Here you can see the door from the kitchen side. The window is in, the trim is done, the stainless steel kick plate and push plate are removed, getting ready for finishing of the inside of the door. And here's the finished door on the porch side. You can see how we trimmed out the window as a simple square molding, and the lock for the deadbolt, we went over that with gun blue to acid etch the brass to make it look 50 years old instead of shiny and brand new. Back in the day, my family purchased from Montgomery Ward's a device called a Yankee door catch, and I took one of them and modified it so that it would hold open the kitchen door onto the porch during nice weather. And you can see here how the door is held open. And you can also see that we've got 7 coats of amber antique shellac on the door, and all the stainless push plates are back in place. And then as a finishing touch, nobody really liked that ugly brown that was on that Yale lock, so I used Rust-Oleum black hammer paint to make it look a bit older than it actually is. And that is how we installed the new door on the kitchen.